It is 7 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Let's see. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make motion to approve the agenda.
A motion by Councilmember Henry.
I'll second.
A second by Councilmember Mock. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. Community comment. Community comment is an opportunity for residents and other stakeholders to share issues or concerns not listed on the agenda with the city. Individuals must limit their comments to 3 minutes. Individuals should not expect the mayor or council to immediately respond to their comments. The city manager, if appropriate, will follow up with the presenter and or respond to questions raised during the community comment at the next meeting. Steve, did you want to talk about during community comment?
It's not on the agenda, is that, I take it?
That's what community comments for. Yep, come on up.
So my name is Steve Squires. I'm here to ask questions, I guess, and try to get answers to
Sure.
the events
Steve,
that happen.
feel free to sit down if you're comfortable. And can you share your address, please?
Yeah, 109 Carver Creek Circle.
Yep.
So there was a water event that happened in May and June. Mm-hmm. I participated in the resident advocacy program for a while. I'm very disappointed in the city's lack of communication with the citizens during that event, as well as the follow-up to that event. So my understanding, there were excessive water pressure to the city in May and June that caused extensive damage to several homes. I don't think the city did a great job at, so my understanding, the first time it was publicly made available was August 1st, and that the citizens are given the whole 30 days to respond and file claims. So August 1st, you guys publicly made the announcement that the residents could have been affected. There wasn't anything public outside of that, so I would expect the city to communicate through a letter through my water bill. I'd also expect the city to give residents more than 30 days, especially when a letter goes out saying, giving us to respond to Lynn, who's on vacation until August 15th. So that's even less than.
I'm going to correct you right there. Lynn's here tonight.
Yeah, Lynn came back today, right?
Yeah.
So Lynn was on vacation until today.
Yeah. We allow our staff members to.
Well, I get that, but residents are supposed to contact Lynn if they have any questions regarding that, and Lynn's not available. Okay. When you called the city, they transferred to Lynn, and I had to specifically ask to talk to Brent. Anyway, I expect better from the city. What I'm asking for today is that the city publishes that event, what caused the event, what damages could have been done to somebody's home as a result of that event, and then give the residents adequate time to respond and file claims. And Brent, we were going back and forth about the amount. Are we good? Because I haven't received an updated letter with the adjusted amount at all.
Yep, I forwarded your request on to the city attorney. Dave, would you mind kind of jumping in here?
Can I, before we get to that, my legal counsel has asked me, I guess for those two different things from the city, as well as it seems reasonable to me that the city, they want to be absolved from the claims or future damages or whatever. I understand the city's trying to protect itself, but the other side, I don't think you can have it both ways, or I would suggest you don't try to have it both ways, that you acknowledge that the damage was caused as a result of the city or the lack of communication with the residents, and then ask to be absolved from future claims. I think that's fair in my opinion.
Yeah, so I don't begrudge you how you feel. I would say that the 350, we're prepared to issue that.
But you should send me a letter with that, right? Because you're looking for me to respond to something.
And so you sent that on Friday after business hours, and so we can work on getting that to you tomorrow.
Okay,
As I mentioned in my email, and you're certainly welcome to have a different opinion, I shared with you the steps that the city took to communicate this issue. This is the first feedback that I'm getting and our staff has got about not communicating about this issue enough.
do you think you did a good job
I'm
communicating
saying,
the issue?
I'm just sharing what, this is, you're the only feedback that we've gotten from residents
I
related
think
to
most
this.
people don't even know that it happened.
Can I,
Sure,
so I'm just sharing that this is the only feedback we got. I'm not judging how you feel. You're perfectly in a position to say you're not satisfied. That's your right, and I'll take that as feedback. I'll pass the next question on to Dave as it relates to managing the release as far as the city goes.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor and Council and Brent, Mr. Squires. So, the city was under no obligation, as the council knows, as staff knows, to approve this alternate claims payment process. I commend the council. I appreciate the reasons for it and the decision to do that. Part of the justification in doing that was that the city wouldn't have to expend resources on potentially defending claims from people that would bring them. In other words, we'll pay these claims based on this event, even though we don't have to.
yeah, keep on saying that,
And-
so,
Excuse, I'm still talking.
or you can, okay,
And so it's a take it or leave it waiver. If folks that want to participate sign the waiver and they're eligible, all the costs are eligible, they'll get paid under the program. And if they don't sign the waiver, they won't get paid. That's the rule.
what constitutes acceptance of that agreement?
A signature.
The signature, not the cashing of the check, or the signature?
Well, it's I think the way it's written, I don't have it in front of me, but the point is
It's not
in order
clear.
to obtain the check, in order to get paid, you have to make that claim.
It's
Or that-
acceptance
You have
of,
to sign that waiver.
so
the
what
claim waiver.
constitutes acceptance? Because that's not clear in the letter.
Okay, we can talk about that offline. The
I'd
council's
like
busy
to
and they have
talk
a busy
about it
agenda
here.
tonight,
What
so we
kind-
don't need to get into a debate at a council meeting. I'm
It's-
happy to talk to you tomorrow.
It's going to the city, I have 15 days to make a decision. The city has
Understood.
15 days to make a decision.
You filed your claim, so you're in. I don't think.
Oh,
the
so I should
city-
just worry about myself.
I don't think the city is in a position, and Brent can correct me if I'm wrong, but I anticipate that if claims get filed before September 1st, even if every little detail isn't figured out or buttoned up, that those folks will have initiated the process necessary to get paid, if they follow the rules and adhere to all the requirements.
I don't
And
even
that's all
think
we're
they
asking.
know about the event. I don't think that they know that the damages could have been caused from that event to their home.
I have a question for Mr. Merrick. So, so Lynn was on vacation. What was the secondary then? If you were to call Lynn and had questions
Yeah,
about this?
so Lynn's out of office directed people to contact me, so Steve
You, okay.
contacted me that same day.
Okay, so there was something set up that said.
With all due respect, Mr. Squires, there's no gap in service levels, because I took at least over half a dozen calls related to this issue while Lynn was gone. So,
Okay, I just understand the process, being that you were out
Yep.
and that it forwarded to you. Okay, and when we had the list of folks who had contacted the city that they had some type of damage, how did we communicate that out to them? Because you took the recorded list that you had, right?
Yep, so initially when the event occurred, we took calls. We only communicated after August 1st the particulars of this program because the council only approved the program August 1st. So we weren't able to communicate the details of a program that the council hasn't authorized. So we've done that. We posted that note to our website, Facebook, our social media accounts, and then Lynn sent letters to the folks that the city has previously contacted,
Okay,
or contacted the city, excuse me.
okay.
The event said May and June. It didn't even give exact dates. The letter was vague. The communication's been completely vague, and it hasn't been transparent. I mean, if you're expecting people to go to the city's website to find out an event like that, I think that's unrealistic. I think that's the reason you have a newsletter that goes out to the city every month in the water bills.
Yeah, we consider that, we haven't had a newsletter go out since the council adopted this program.
I get that. I just think the time frame is completely unreasonable, and I don't think it's transparent. I don't think you're communicating the way I'd expect you to with the city. I understand the legal advice or whatever, but
All right, Steve, I appreciate your feedback. I am always looking for it, especially from a communications perspective. I'm sorry that you didn't feel like you received the information the way that served you.
I mean,
and our
I know
community.
about things
I'm still
because-
talking, Steve.
Okay.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna direct Mr. Anderson to reach out to help explain that legal agreement and the questions that you have. And then Brent, and now that Lynn is back from her vacation, she will be available.
I have
to
no
speak to you
further
about
questions for the city. I'm not asking anything for the city. I most likely won't sign that event.
Okay,
If there is something going forward, I most likely will be pursuing legal action.
okay. That's your right. Thank you. All right, anyone else for community comment? I don't know if we have anybody on the Zoom. Going once, going twice. All right, let's see. We have no presentations or reports. We have no public hearings. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Councilmember Henry
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember Sayer. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, business items. 8.1, the 2022 ARPA utility projects. Mr. Schmidt.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'll be presenting on the 2022 Infrastructure Improvement Project. We're at the point now where plans and specs have been developed, so ultimately I'd be looking for approval of plans and specs and authorizing advertisement for bids for the project. So this is something that started back in 2021. This is part of the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act. The city had received funding in 2021 through that program. In September of 21, the city had identified intended uses for those funds. And since then, the fire department has bought the radios and pagers. The rest of the intended use of the funds were for infrastructure-related improvements in the city. And they had identified that, or you had identified that in September. So before you tonight, we've developed the final plans. Includes three main project areas. Number one is the Spring Creek Lift Station. That lift station, we were looking to add a portable on-site generator to that location, and also a new controller and fiber optic improvements to that station. The station's about 20 years old today, has the original electrical components in it, and no backup generator. So some big improvements slated for that station. Secondly, the Carver Creek Lift Station, that's the biggest lift station that the city owns and maintains. Again, it has the original components, so we'd be looking to replace the controller in that and also get that on fiber, so a much more reliable SCADA system there. And then lastly, the Oak Street Lift Station. The generator there is obsolete. Chad and his team aren't able to get replacement parts for it anymore, so it needs to be replaced as it's no longer serviceable. So that's the main piece of that lift station improvement as well. There was a final item that was identified in the ARPA intended use plan, and that was to relocate the generator from the water treatment plant to the public services building. That is something that was done via change order to the water treatment project here a month or two ago, which was approved by council. So that item is taken care of, just leaving these three items that I just described. So project delivery schedule, if council approves tonight, we'd be looking to advertise for bids, be bringing back that to the council. Likely the second meeting is in September, where the council would consider award of a contract. And then ultimately, if it proceeded into construction, we'd be looking at a late fall start or spring 2022, all dependent upon lead times on electrical components right now, which is about 12 months, 12 weeks is what I'm hearing right now for generators and controllers, that kind of stuff. So a little bit of a lead time, see what happens, but that would be the general project delivery schedule. So as I mentioned, it would be using all ARPA funds for this. There's $410,000 remaining, And I'm estimated the cost of this project to be about $400,000. So with that, I would entertain any questions that you may have.
Questions, comments?
I have a question. Can I ask one?
Steve, we generally limit comments to the beginning of the meeting.
Directly related to the other question, the other issue I had. Will the city be any of those projects have the potential of damaging homes? Like the controllers? I mean, will the city be communicating to residents if there is a potential that there would be damage to homes as a result of any of those projects? Like excessive pressure?
Dave, can you respond to that?
Well, I mean, I would assume that if there was any potential for that happening, the city would communicate it. I mean, it's, to me, you know, I think the city engineer can probably opine about the likelihood of that. I assume it's not, there is no likelihood of that, and if there would be, city staff can feel free to communicate with homeowners about it, but I guess I can't speak to our ability to communicate with residents.
How would a lawyer know if there's any potential damage that could be done to homes as a result of that project?
Yeah, if the council's okay, I'll take this.
Please.
Point taken, Steve. I understand you're frustrated with how this. Can I just let me finish here for a second? There's inherent risk in probably every single city project that is done, and if it's done incorrectly, there's processes that resolve that. The water pressure issue, is there a chance, depending upon some miraculous piece of events that occur, that it could happen? Yes, but there is not a reasonable expectation that any of these projects would damage private property unless someone was, negligent. Can we guarantee that? I would also say, at what cost then on any project would the city want to inform residents of any minute possibility of damage to their property? I would say that there's a reasonable expectation that there won't, and so out of consideration for everyone's taxpayer dollars, we are not going to warn them of a minute possibility that based on some random condition their property would be damaged.
Right. Council, questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The lift stations are important, but they're never very pretty. Is there a time that if there was enough interest to do, a barrier or landscape, and I realize it can't be like right on top of it, I'm sure there's rules, but would this be the time? And would that be allowed? Or, could these funds go towards that?
I can't speak to if landscaping would be allowed to that. I don't know.
I would actually concur with Lori. We have one downtown in that lot too, and it is an unattractive, it is not aesthetically pleasing by any means. I'm talking if we could throw a couple of shrubs in front of it. I know it's minor, Glenn, and it's.
They're not meant to be
They're
aesthetically
not.
pleasing. They
They're
have a
not.
function.
It won't take away the function of it, but maybe
But
it will
some
be a little
that-
more.
All right,
You're
guys,
making an
let's
effort.
keep a
But
little bit
some
more.
that you're making an effort to, if it's, next to a trail, not all three of them, but.
And I'm not looking to have, a $3,000 plan. I'm talking about going to Home Depot and buying a couple of arborvitae and our public works guys chucking them in the ground. So
Get a bench.
I would suggest, if that's the desire of the council, that we fund that with local dollars. I just want to be mindful and careful with the rules and regulations that go along with ARPA funds, but if that's the desire of the council, we can certainly add that to the plan. We just pay that through local resources.
okay, that would be great. Minor dollar amount, just a little
Right.
something.
Maybe just to see what it would be in the Oak Street.
I don't have any. I get it that they're not aesthetically pleasing. I don't know that we necessarily need to shield them. These aren't going into new areas. There's a component that we need to be able to get to them to maintain them. So I'm not feeling that we need to shield them.
Well, you don't have one that you can see from your window either, so you might feel differently if you
No.
see that. And I'm not talking
But
about
it was there when you
enclosing
moved
it.
in.
I'm not talking about enclosing it. We could go down that route for a lot of things, but for in all areas of town, we could
Yes.
argue different things on that all night. But I'm just saying, if there's like one little row you can put in that cost the city $75. To me, it's worth it to bring some of the aesthetics back up in those places.
Glenn, do you want to opine on landscaping?
No.
So I don't think we move forward on that. Okay, other questions? Comments, motions?
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
approve the plans and specs and order advertising for bids for the 2022 infrastructure improvement project.
All right, got a motion by Councilmember Henry,
I'll second.
a second by Councilmember Mock. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. 8.2, the Trail Sign Project Grant Agreement. Ms. Smith, welcome back. Did you
Hi,
miss us?
thank you. Yes, and I don't really remember.
Nice seeing
how
your
to do
smile,
this.
Aaron.
Thank you.
I missed that.
Thanks. Alrighty, and this is a fun one to come back on. A good, exciting project to talk about tonight. So tonight we are reviewing a grant agreement with Carver County through a program called CHIP, which is a statewide health improvement program for wayfinding and trail signage. So we've been talking about this for a really long time. So I'm excited that it's starting to happen. So I would say we started this conversation in 2018 when the Parks Commission started working on the Parks Master Plan with a deeper desire to improve wayfinding in Carver, get consistent signage so people would recognize that they're on our trail system in the city of Carver. So through some grant dollars, we're able to fund the project that we've been working on since 2018. Last time we talked about this was April 4th, and we hit you with a lot of signs. So we've done some refinement in the plan, taken several of the signs out, and then applied for these grant dollars. So the grant in total from Carver County and the SHIP program is $11,601 for 27 signs. Thus, there's a city match that's required, and it will come in the form of installation of the signs of about $4,680. So we'll work towards that with Carver County, getting the design of the signs, purchasing them, and then our public services staff will do the installation as our city match. So we have cut several signs from the map that we had in early April, so moving towards, I think Councilmember Mock was saying that we were taking away from some of the views of the trails just with the inundating of signs that we had proposed. So we've cut down to 27 that we feel are in appropriate locations that people could use our trail system, understand it. We also got feedback about adding a QR code, so we're working through that right now with Bolton and Menk to have a QR code on all the signs. So if you're out on the trail system, unfamiliar with where you're at, you can scan it. It'll take you to the city's website that will show you the entire map.
Aaron, just a quick question on the QR code.
Yeah.
Not all of them that are pictured in here have them. Is your intent to have all of them have it then?
Brent is shaking his head,
No,
so
okay.
maybe.
Okay.
I think this happened while Aaron was out, but the intent was just to place them at kind of major locations,
Okay.
our primary locations throughout the trail plan.
Thanks. So on the screen now are some trail loops that the Parks Commission worked pretty hard on, so identifying areas of the community that felt like it was a trail that could be used at different ability levels and different access points. So some trail loops that will be highlighted through the trail map as well as the signage that's proposed. And then an example of the signs. So we featured the green on the top of the sign to match some of the signage that we're working on through the rest of the community, as well as the loops. And then there is one on the bottom that shows that QR code that we would have at some locations that people could scan should they need some additional help with the trail map. So again, tonight, the request is to enter into a grant agreement, which has been reviewed by the city attorney with Carver County for a grant of $11,601 for 27 wayfinding and trail signage, and the understanding that there will be the city match in installation labor.
Questions, comments?
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
Looking at the invoice from Promo Graphics, it's saying that they have installation included in that, so the total is $15,900. I'm assuming that that was just an old estimate and the installation is coming out because we're doing it?
Correct. That was just project total, I believe.
Okay, so we're not on the hook for that additional,
No, we won't be paying double installation. We'll be doing that work.
okay, and that's coming in kinds, right?
Correct.
There was another one and it escaped me, so I will.
Glenn?
They're pretty.
Hey, Lori.
Go sit on my bench.
As we grow and need more signs, I imagine that's something that just, at your level, you'd be able to purchase, even if
Yes, so I would say that the 27 is a high number, but I think we could work in a lower quantity of signs that we need throughout park improvement projects.
I think this is great. Really good work on the grant. Those green and gold signs look amazing. But I thank you for hearing the feedback of getting that QR code in there, because I think that that'll be cool for some of the folks who might not be familiar with the area or might. I know that there won't be one in the middle of the Hawthorne Ridge Trail, but like get stuck in the middle of there and be like, oh, please let there be an end after this next hill.
Does everybody walk with phones?
A lot of times.
Haven't you seen people around like head down only on their phones as they're walking?
At
As they're
least-
walking into the creek.
At least they're outside.
Yeah.
I have one addition, Courtney.
Go ahead.
I also think that the yellow and purple ones look just fine too.
Well, we all have our favorites. Did you think of your other question?
No, I think
Okay.
we're good.
All right. Then, if there aren't any other questions, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to enter into a grant agreement with Carver County for the trail and wayfinding signage.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Henry, second by Councilmember Sayer. Any further discussion?
Yes. You did a great job finding all the grants. The signs are awesome. I wasn't just trying to be that way, but this will be a great addition to the city so that people won't get lost.
Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Right, 8.3, the preservation ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'm happy to present a proposed amendment to the city's Heritage Preservation Ordinance. This is kind of a long time coming, a project that was initiated by our Volunteer Heritage Preservation Commission. Started in March and led to some conversations at their June meeting as well. So it primarily involves some general cleanup of code language and incorporates some of the primary changes related to our ability to make inspections to determine HPC compliance. It incorporates and clarifies enforcement tools available to city staff, provides cleaner processes for receiving, reviewing, and processing applications from residents, references the 60-day rule so we can effectively and efficiently process applications, clarify some design standard pieces for properties that are following our residential and commercial design guidelines, authorizes the HPC to impose reasonable conditions when approving their certificates of appropriateness, and finally specifies that building permits or other approvals will be denied if a required certificate of appropriateness is not prepared or not approved. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the proposed amendments at their July 21st meeting and unanimously recommended adoption. The Heritage Preservation Commission met on August 8th and reviewed the ordinance for the last time and also unanimously recommended adoption. So the ordinance is in your packet, 07-2022, which was prepared and reviewed by the city attorney. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions on preservation? Christy?
Yeah, maybe as a liaison, I'll just say a few things. So this is a long time coming for the HPC. This is something that we've been working on for quite a while, just in general, but it's been kind of that vision to have this for the group for many, many years. So I want to say thank you to Brent, because Brent coming on as our staff liaison to the commission has actually gotten this ball rolling for us. So it really helps the HPC. They're very passionate about what they do. They're very understanding when it comes to friends, neighbors, residents that they may know who are doing some of these, and they work really hard to work with the community. But they also felt for a long time that if there was a denial, because that does happen, they kind of felt like there wasn't any recourse if they were to deny one. And I think that is only fair if you're going to have the option to approve and deny, that there's something that sets a little bit of boundaries then at that point. So the HPC is really happy with this because they knew it went to the Planning Commission, they knew it was coming to the council. So they're really happy, like I said, they're really happy that this has finally taken place and that it's before us now tonight.
And I would say ahead of schedule, because I was at the meeting when you guys were talking about it, and you wanted it to be done, and we were thinking it was gonna be done more September-ish, and you were worried about the construction timeline, so I think it got done a little bit earlier than you were anticipating, so good work for the HPC. All right, any other questions, comments, or a motion?
I will make a motion then.
Oh,
Okay.
yep.
This was not referenced in Mr. Merrick's memo, but at the last minute, staff put together a resolution 138-22, which would authorize summary publication. So assuming the council approves the ordinance tonight, that is also at the end of your packet. I would just ask that you also then make a separate motion to approve
What is that ordinance number again, please?
138-22. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 07-2022 regarding the Heritage Preservation Commission.
We have a motion by Councilmember Mock.
Second.
And a second by Councilmember Henry. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
All right, I would like to make a motion to approve resolution authorizing summary publication of ordinance 07-2022, and it's resolution number 138-22.
That's what we need, Dave? Yes. Okay. We have a motion by Councilmember Mock
Second.
and a second by Councilmember Henry. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Great work.
All right, well done. Okay, item 8.4, the CASA turnback, which is a carryover from our work session this evening. Earlier in the work session, we went through, Dan did a really good speedy job of going through the presentation. I don't think we need to see that again, but I think we're at the point where we wanted to ask questions. So I'm going to start first here, Dan. Do we know that the county will really cut us that check and give us money for this? I feel like I'm having a hard time believing that the county would be like, here you go, here's the money for the project.
At this point, yeah, I do, because we've walked through that, and we were basically set to say this is the amount of investment that we think is going to be necessary in the next 5 years. The short answer is they concurred. Their agreement process would allow for a payment in lieu of construction, and therefore, yes, it would be more of a matter of what's the dollar amount.
Okay. And can we say no thank you to the turnback?
That would go back to probably the original discussions on this is how much would that be a reversal of prior understandings, prior agreements. I would say you have no bound obligation to do this. I would say it's more in principle. That was a principled agreement, I believe, that's on the record, and at this point it would be, is it the right thing to do to move forward with the turnback?
Okay. Let's see, I think that was it for my questions. Who else has questions? Go ahead.
This is a 5-year payback plan? Or is this, what we would go approach them with would be 5 years of maintenance on this? Or the reclamation and everything that's listed, the drainage, the shouldering, the trails, the drainage and icing issues, all that stuff?
I would say the 5 years is a loose number that I threw out here. That's just a kind of a line of thinking that I would use. But no, at this particular time, they have a reclamation programmed, and they would be basically executing that reclamation, or they would be estimating the dollar amount and giving it to you. So there's nothing magic to that duration.
Are we just talking the reclamation, or are we talking all the rest of this that's listed in the issues and opportunities?
Okay, so no, it's a very valid question here. That was back when we were taking a look at what we would be concerned about, taking the road back over. So at this point, if there are other things that are in addition to the reclamation that we would say, yes, you would have to do these things, that will be part of what we would negotiate with the final number.
Okay.
So let's just say we determine that there's a culvert that's crushed and failing. We would say, if you're going to do a maintenance project, would you be replacing that? They may concur, disagree, And then at that point, it would either be added or excluded, and we both, at the end of the day, have to agree.
So if there were springs all along the east side of the trail, on the southeast side of the trail from Casey's East,
Yeah.
would that be part of the reclamation project as well as to make sure that those springs are well drained?
Well, drainage is usually a part of almost any maintenance project that gets into the, you know, that section of the corridor if it's major rehab outside of a mill and overlay. That being said, you know, their obligation ultimately is for a well-drained corridor, and that's what they're going to be looking at is it sufficiently drained? So I wouldn't be able to answer that until they come forward and say this is what we would have been planning to do, and then we can comment on that.
Okay. Has Marty Walsh had a chance to speak more about the joint trail opportunities between Carver and Chaska and Carver, Waconia?
No, we haven't met on it. I know it's on their comp plan, and I know what it's going to take to get this done, just from past experience, and we do plan to visit with them to find out what their thinking is,
Okay.
when it would be programmed for them, and ultimately start thinking about how it would actually come together.
Okay. That's all I got for now.
Christie?
So I like the option of taking the cash from them, rather and having some more control over what is happening when it comes to construction. I do want to be very careful, though, that doesn't then exclude us when it comes to wanting this joint trail, that we've kind of backed ourselves into a corner now, and we haven't either prepared the area and we have to redo it again, or the county basically says, well, you had a chance to put the things that you needed, so we're going to bring the trail to here, and now it's on your hook. So I guess knowing that we want a trail on 40 and knowing that we're going to be hooked into that system, I just want to be very careful that we stay on board with the county on that. But I do like, I think I really do like the idea that we have a little more control of the construction, a little more control of our own project. I know when we had JCP going on 11, and people would assume, it's the city project. We had to have extra communications then that said, no, don't contact the city, now contact the county. And it was sort of that we're just running in circles with the residents. So for me, at this point, from what I know at this point, my preference would be to work out the in-lieu payment and go that route.
My concern with that, I understand absolutely having cash and fist, but this road, I think there's a lot more hidden that we don't know about. And my concern is that there might be more than meets the eye when we have to do all of the reclamation and everything else.
Well, we found that out when we did the stretch from here to the pit on 40, when they were digging that up, and it was water underneath it, right? So, but we're not doing that section this time.
Which section?
From the corner from Main Street out, right? That's because that we just redid how many years ago?
Yeah, the section that I believe they have programmed is really Casey's up the hill to 61.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And so nothing from basically the new coffee shop to.
Will they be doing anything on that?
It's a good question, and this is the next step that I would be looking at is ultimately the challenge we face in these discussions is that it's a bit of a negotiation. Right. Let's just say we say like the icing issues or there's some drainage issues up to the west on 40. We think it's a problem. If the county would come back and say, well, yeah, but that's a 30-year problem for us. If you look at all the drainage issues we have across Carver County, this is one of the reasons why the turnbacks are negotiated, because it might be a low priority on their system. There's no way we're going to convince them that they needed to spend money in the next 5, and therefore we have to look at what's legitimately.
What's it worth to you?
Where does it stand in their priorities? That's why the reclaim is easy, because they already planned on doing it.
Would it be right to assume if we were to take the money that we would have some soil borings done to find out what we have underneath over here before we were to take that money? Or would that be a stipulation of it?
Oh, absolutely. You have complete and total freedom to decide, what exploration you'd want to do on this corridor. And quite frankly, there's also, custom terms. I mean, you mentioned one actually in terms of the trail. That's actually a term that I was going to be putting in there as a additional consideration. That this would not impact the county's designation of the route as linking. And we can put it in there, and if they accept, then it would ultimately protect the city from any changes to that trail status as a result of the agreement. So there's different things you can put in there that are custom.
Okay. And then we look at the pavement management plan that we've been implementing around town. I'm trying to remember the year that Main Street West and 40 leading out was done. I feel like I want to say 2013, but I don't remember for sure. Are we looking, what was that?
You're testing me now.
I know, I'm trying to think. But anyways, if we are to take that back, if we're looking at pavement management and we're, depending how many years we're at that one now, would we be requiring them to also do a seal coating or something to make sure that that road doesn't fall apart the same as we're trying to prevent the rest of them in town?
All fair comments to be discussed. And yes, if we could say that would be part of your program in a reasonable, time frame, obviously they're going to start bucking with in 20 years you were going to, because you've had a runway to save for it. But if we were to say, yeah, that's part of your program, I mean, we can have that discussion. And so I would say yes. I would just have to look at what their typical program might call for.
For seal coating or those
Yes.
kinds of things? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Lori?
Yeah, like Councilmember Mock, I'm in favor of option B, because of the flexibility for the city. And then also that, if I understand it right, it gets the city eligible for MSA funds to use for that road?
Yes, it's the cleanest, probably most expedited way to bring it into the system.
So for those reasons, I would really want you here from though to like advocate for us for with their reclamation, what it includes for drainage, for what they were gonna do if they did, if they were the ones doing it, what did it all include for drainage, and maybe we do have to do some research and, make sure it's just done adequately. And then also being able to stay on the radar for the trail linkage.
Yeah.
And that sounds like there's already something you have in mind that could be verbiage in there, so. Yeah, that's why I support it. Thanks for confirming the things.
Yep.
Thank you. In your presentation, I think you said we could anticipate if this becomes an MSA route, when it becomes an MSA route, we would make $10,000 a year on it?
Tens. I didn't want to get you too worked up about a big number, but I mean, if we run the math, I believe it's close to 50. So it's actually a pretty sizable chunk because it's a long run of road. But
Okay.
until that runs through the system and we see their formula applied.
And then do we have to kind of rejigger all of the other MSA routes that we have to be able to account for this long stretch? We just throw it on top?
No, that's the reasoning for waiting until you became MSA, because turnbacks have a special exception to the rule on mileage, such that your entire system, as it is, can absorb this additional mileage because you received a turnback. So it's on top of your current mileage, and it actually allows you to exceed your statutory limits on mileage because turnbacks are on top of.
Okay, thank you. You guys all know that I struggle with this. It seems like it is another maintenance project that we are taking on at a time where we've got enough on our hands already. So I'm struggling with, yes, Glenn, I will mow your lawn and Christie's and Lori's when I'm, it just seems, and I think Glenn and I are on the same page here. We're looking at the issues and opportunities, and looking at this, it looks like a road that has a lot of issues and opportunities, and I don't see that as a positive. Perhaps I have the wrong outlook on this, but I would be shocked if in option A, the county says, yes, we will take care of the trail, the pavement needs, the intersection improvements, the draining and icing issues, the trail, the shouldering needs, and the bank stabilization. Like, we're never going to get that, and I just see dollar signs for what this is going to cost the city, and that makes me nervous. I know I'm in the minority with that. So understanding that and moving on, I tend to agree with Glenn, and I want to make sure that I have the right option, but I think that option A would be in our best interest to see what we can get the county to do, because I don't think,
If we're gonna go into the direct negotiations with cash for projects, it's an old road, like I said. And I remember when there was a railroad crossing on that road, so it's been a while. It pains me just to take a lump sum from them, depending on what they're willing to do. Okay, if they're just, we're gonna do a reclamation, here's your baby. There's a lot more to this road than meets the eye, in my humble opinion. But I'm just one vote. That's,
Just one point of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So Courtney and Glenn, I want to ask you both then. So Courtney, yes, you've talked many times that this isn't probably a high priority item project list for the city.
to me, it seems like buying a lemon car. There's a lot that's going on here.
But my question then is, if
Knowingly
we were to
buying
do
a lemon car. Sorry to
Everyone
interrupt.
wants that, that's okay. The construction, for number 8, for construction-related costs. So we may not get everything, we may, but we were not going to know until we really start talking with the county. So if that's our starting point, to go with A, to talk to them, what they're thinking for construction, what the related costs are. I mean, this is really the negotiation bargaining table, right? They come at us, we come back, and we go back and forth. If A seems like a better option that makes you and Glenn a little bit more comfortable, and that is our starting point, we can always, I mean, is there any reason we could not switch to B in lieu of payment after we started negotiating with them and said, okay, this is enough, we'll take this, or the whole deal's gonna kibosh?
Yeah, that's what I was going to try and clarify. Is to me, it's going to be the same. It's just who does it and whether or not
Who
you
does
take the
the work.
cash
Who
and
manages
repurpose
it?
it. Because ultimately, what we're trying to agree to is what would you have done, and then they're either going to go do those things or they're going to give you the money for it.
Or they're going to say no.
Yeah, and that applies to both of them.
Yeah.
I mean, we might ask them to go replace that culvert, and part of their response would be, no, we weren't going to do that. And so, but if we said, can you replace that culvert? And, the option A, would you have done that in your project? And they would say possibly yes. And then you would take the value of replacing that and they would take it in cash for option B. So ultimately, you're still negotiating what would you have done. And then option B is taking that and moving it over into a check. And then at that point, you would obviously decide.
So phase 1 of the negotiations is the scope,
Yes,
right? And then phase 2 is
the amount.
work or cash.
Yes.
So, I mean, do we need to go A or B tonight, or are we looking for just, we
This
need to
is
get our
a work.
handle on the scope?
This was a work session.
Yeah.
So.
So, I mean, if the charge of duty that we're gonna send out then is, we wanna know the scope of work, starts the negotiations, we don't have to go A or B tonight, we don't have to take that split tonight, right? I mean,
Are you asking
You'll have an agreement in front of you at some point in time after we go through all the maintenance discussions. And I would either, populate it with A or B, but it's either going to be, this is the scope of work that was assumed. And you could either ask them to do that, or we'd go in there with, this is the value of that you would receive. And you, at that point, would be approving an agreement to go one path or another. But yes.
So what I'm saying is, maybe we're not to the point yet where we need to look at this A or B option. We need to get a handle on what the scope of this is to start with.
Yeah, and I think we aim high, and I think we ask for everything that's in green and red in this map. Can I just ask, well, that's where I'm going. Future 61 improvements, that's a Chaska intersection, right? So that's not something that we need to worry about from a fiscal standpoint.
No, not not really technically by JPA. No, that's not how that would play out. It'd
But
be
we also
Chaska.
don't get any say or very limited say in the matter as well, correct?
Yeah, because it's another
get as much say
municipality.
as
Yeah,
another 41
that's a
project.
good and it's a bad. The other thing is, remember, there's also custom terms, because we were talking about a custom term in regards to if anything were to happen in County Road 11. Brent made this comment. The agreement would state that it would be treated as a county leg if they were to do anything within the next 10 years, for example. And so there's some little subtle agreements, terms
Wait, I
that
think you lost me there, I'm sorry.
if the intersection of County Road 11 and 40,
yeah.
if this became a city turnback and it was a city road, if they did a project, what we were offering is if they did a project in the next 10 years, their joint project on that T intersection would be treated as an all-county intersection up until a certain duration.
Let's
So
ask for 20 years
Yeah.
in terms. I'd hate to see it happen in 11 years.
yeah, so there's things of that nature to protect you on major efforts. So
Okay. If we aimed high and asked for mill and overlay, intersection improvements, drainage, shoulder bank stabilization, what do you think the likeliness is of us getting everything on our wish list?
well, at some point they'll get to the point where they would say, no, this just keep the road for however long, I suppose, because it's not worth it. They'd be reprogramming their priorities arbitrarily for this agreement, I think, is where we'd run into the issue. And because they do have obviously all their priorities, and if it gets outside of what seems fiscally reasonable for their system, it would not really be viable for them to go into it.
Well, we won't know
So
that.
it's
till
less
later.
than a 50-50 chance.
Well, yeah, if it's reconstructs that they don't have programmed in the next 5 to 10 years, I'd go so far as to say I've almost sure that it would be no. Ultimately, a turnback looks at a window of time and says, reasonably speaking, what would we have done? And that is what your ultimate target is,
Yeah.
to say, all right, reasonably speaking, what would you have invested and give it to us, or go do it?
Okay.
And then you have a runway to save for your projects in the future.
I worry about this, that this isn't on the county's radar, a lot of these things, the drainage issues, the ice dams, just as you run out of town here, that's been happening for a long time, and we haven't seen any improvement, and they send a salt spreader in the winter to take care of it, so. I feel heard. I know you guys know that I have more than just a couple of concerns with this, so. Go ahead, Brian.
I do too, actually.
Just wanted to, you want to go ahead?
Yes, I'd like to. So when I'm looking at the next steps in these timelines here, are these sort of arbitrary? If we had made, like, we're going A, go tonight, or are we missing something on funding if we were to not, say we figured out this is the exact route we want to go? Are we missing anything, or is this just the timeline that we were hoping for if we just do the steps?
No, I'm only advising it because every year it's not on your system. It's another 50,000 or whatever that number is that you would not receive an MSA. So if you're going to take it in 3 years, that's $150,000 that you would not have accrued, and you still are going to get the same road.
Okay.
So to me, at this point, because you draw on it, you're better off starting your savings now if you're ever going to take the road.
Okay.
So those issues are never going to go away. It's just when you start receiving money for it.
Okay. Thanks.
I would I'm probably saying this out loud just so it makes sense to me, but I want to share it with the council. Is the first step is really to negotiate the improvements to the road. So the A and B doesn't really matter initially. It's a choice you'll have to make later. So all the things you talked about with drainage, pavement condition, intersection challenges, future improvements, etc. Then it's just a matter of, would you rather have the city contract for the project, or would you have the county? So like, in essence, we're leading the project on 6th Street, the county led it on JCP. The other thing that we haven't talked a lot about, I know we have previously, but I think it's pertinent to this conversation, is whatever value you place on controlling essentially the main street through downtown. I mean, so there are a lot of, I think, there's a lot of leeway that the county gives us on the use of that, but you mentioned like maintenance items. And this isn't meant to disparage county staff, but their city staff and Chad's team would handle a maintenance issue probably in a different way than county staff would. So there's a value add. What that value equates to is, you'd have to determine. But I do think that there's a intrinsic value to controlling, what amounts to be 4th Street East, Broadway, and Main coming out of the city. And so we'll try to, just try to think about that as we're trying to negotiate improvements to the section as well.
Any other comments, questions? All right, so I think next steps are you're gonna ask for the sun, the moon, and the stars, and the drainage.
Yep.
It's from the county.
Yep, we're gonna see what seems reasonable and defensible, and
Do we have any idea, if I missed it, when the county was planning on working on the intersection of 61 and 40?
sorry, 61 when?
61 and 40.
They're out there, I believe, in the 10-year window. It's out ways.
We
All right.
know, Lyndon's done a presentation.
Okay.
It's out there somewhere.
All right.
Yep. It's out there a few years.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. No other questions? All right. Let's see. Oops, wrong agenda. Let's see. Thank you for staying late and helping with that. Communications monthly reports. Any questions on the monthly reports? No.
Nope.
All right. Hearing none. Mr. Mayor, council updates.
I don't have an update. I just, this is a little bit off the cuff, but I do think it's perhaps low-hanging fruit that just based on this is related to the water pressure issue. I mean, the date that we chose for claim submission was essentially a summary of kind of where the city attorney and finance director and I had discussed, and if the council feels like there's value added by extending that 30 days so we can get it in the newsletter, I don't see I just don't see a downside to that. It's your prerogative. I defer to the city attorney on the language about, waiving future claims. I don't think we have wiggle room on that to, support his view. But if, as long as we're not going, in perpetuity or for 6 months or a year, so, people can conjure claims. But if by some happenstance someone, fixed their water pressure valve on their water heater and just have missed, all the stuff that the city's put out, and missed the Chaska Herald article, and, then,
Yep.
at least we were kind of belt and suspenders on it.
I'm glad you brought that up, Brent, because I was going to bring that up during my questions and council comments. So, things were getting a little tense since I see that Mr. Squires has left, but I wanted to bring to council the same question that you're asking and say, okay, so all the things were getting hot in here, let's take that out of it and let's look and say, okay, did we maybe miss something? Would it maybe be good to put it in the newsletter just to make sure that we aren't missing anybody? And my feeling on that is that I would be happy to see it go into the newsletter again with another 30 days, and we can't let this go on, till the end of time. But I think having it in the newsletter, knowing it hit everybody's utility bill and in their mail, makes me feel a little more comfortable, and taking again some feedback that maybe we didn't have it, we didn't get it out on all the channels we could have, or maybe the time frame we could have. I would be all for putting it into the city newsletter.
I don't have any issues with adding it to the city newsletter, just as an aside, and you probably know this, but Glenn and Lori, when the city newsletter deadline is generally the 20th of the month. So as we're doing this, even though you don't get it until like that first weekend of the preceding month, there's a 10 to 12 day lag time, and a lot can happen. Mm-hmm. And believe you me, Brent and I have had conversations of like, how are we going to communicate this? And especially like the week of the week after Father's Day, when the initial incident happened, like, are we saying enough? Let's say an update, even if the update is we don't have an update. Mm-hmm. We're still looking for the issue. I know at this point, like, truly the only communications vehicle that we have not used is the city newsletter. And again, it's because of that deadline and because it's a print vehicle that comes out once a month. As an aside, I'm actually, when we had the water issue with the pumps last summer I think it was last summer, right, where we had to do another watering ban 2 years ago maybe?
Was that well went down?
Yeah, I did the following month when we had the full story. That's what my monthly article was. My monthly article, what I'm thinking of writing for September, is going through that and kind of dissecting it and being able to do that. So I'm okay with giving another 30 days. I'm all for transparency and communication and throwing whatever we can out there to see what sticks and what resonates with each individual resident. I do think, and it was Dave's counsel, that we have to get those agreements signed. We can't open up, I can't think of another word to use other than the floodgates, to, like whatever issues
Right.
we'll have into perpetuity. We cannot do that. But I think that we can certainly give 30 more days to be able to get it into the newsletter. That said, I don't think we did this wrong. We were really clear, and a lot of our questions when we met 2 weeks ago was asking Lynn, like, how soon will those letters go out? Are those letters going to be in mailboxes by the end of the week? I think 3 weeks is a good enough time, to get folks to take action on something like this. And I'll also argue that I think, from what I've heard from neighbors and residents who had experienced this, it was very clear if your home was affected by this. This wasn't, something that, oh yeah, I guess I did have a plumber out. This was a significant event and you would have known. So that's where I'm sitting.
I'm sorry, so can you clarify? So you are good with
I'm
it
fine
going
with
in the
it,
newsletter
yes.
and extending the 30 days? Okay. I also agree with you that the waiver, if you're going to receive these funds, the waiver is the imperative part, and you have to comply with that.
So if the council concurs, if we could get a motion to that effect of extending the alternative claim response, claim submission to September 30th. Is that acceptable, Dave?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, it's a little unique to add an action item at this point in the meeting, but I think there's no risk in doing that, and frankly, the alternative would be to bring it back to the council at the next meeting. So I think a motion that would suffice. Staff can get it in the newsletter, and then we can see what happens. But the other thing I would add too is I think when all this stuff was presented to the council, in fact, staff had already, and Lynn can attest to this, had already started communicating with I think over 30 residents who had already initiated a formal claims process with the city, and those had all been tendered collectively to your insurance provider. And so there was significant communication that was ongoing dating back to May and June with all these homeowners, and pretty substantial involvement from Brent and his team. So I do think that that staff did a good job with respect to that, but extending that 30 days is no issue at all, and I think that's the way to do it. So
I also think that, whether we realize it or not, I think that there was a network of plumbers who knew of these issues too, and that they were telling their clients, like, oh, call the city. And that was another communications vehicle and ways of, I don't think that in the next 30 days we're going to find many people who are like, oh, but I have no issues with extending it.
I do think, though, that then we can say that we have done completely done our due diligence, and there is at that point nothing more that we can do to get the word out. But I would like to make a motion to extend the communications and the
timeline.
The timeline. Brent, you had a lot of words there, and I don't remember what you all needed in there.
A motion to extend the alternative claim response by 30 days to September 30th.
And that it will go in the city newsletter.
Yeah, we don't need a motion to
Okay,
that, but we'll
I'd
do
like
that.
to add that. But yes, I would like to make a motion with what Brent's wording was.
We have a motion by Councilmember Mock. I will second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. Any other updates? No? Okay. Lori?
No updates.
Christy?
I have a couple here. So I did want to address something that happened. I was made aware, and I'm sure the rest of the council was too, of an email that Brent received with a resident who was concerned what he was doing with his personal time off. Frankly, I think that type of questioning is obviously not appropriate. Mr. Merrick, as with anyone, is allowed to take vacation time, spend time with his family, go where he wants. He is a resident of this community, and to have someone sending emails who knows that he is off because either they called and got us out of office or they emailed and got us out of office because it was referenced in the email, to then say, why are you doing this? Why are you going to this house? Is inappropriate, it's invasive, and it is completely out of line with what we should be doing as neighbors here in this community. And I would just like to say to Brent, well, I think that it's fantastic that you replied to an email like that. I would like you to know that and I can't speak for the rest of the council, but for myself, if someone is going to send emails that are invasive to your personal time, requesting you to get back to them about what you are doing with your personal time, I support you not responding to emails like that. I don't see that there's any reason that you should be held to that standard where your personal time has to become public knowledge. So I just want you to know that I don't think that was okay. I appreciate that you did it, but you have my full support to not do that again.
It's like you've read my emails to Brent saying, I have zero expectation to you responding outside of business hours. So couldn't agree more.
My other one then is Steamboat Days is coming. We all know it's coming. My brain hurts a little bit from this, but no, it's just that final weeks, right? You're getting all of the things buttoned up. The week before is actually better because everything is all set, but it's coming 9 through 11. We are going to have great bands. I wanted to mention again, so they're going to be doing history tours at the Church by the River from 1 to 5, so they're going to have that building open. I was wondering if we could maybe get make sure that's clean before, and then the landscaping could use a little love over there. I know there's some branches and things that are overgrowing the sign even on one side, so I want to make sure that that's kind of looking better before that. Other than that, we all know Steamboat's coming. Here we go.
Thanks. Ben?
I'd just like to thank the HPC and the Planning Commission for voting unanimously on the HPC motion that we did tonight. I've got some news. It's a first for Carver. It's very unique that there are 2 athletes that are at the peak of their game in this day and age. And they happen to live within a half mile of each other. 2 residents of Carver, Brody Zemer and Javon Moore. They both committed to the University of Minnesota last week. So in 3 years, they're going to be playing for the Gophers. That's a pretty proud moment.
Look at that proud grandpa.
That's my shout out. Thanks, guys.
All right. Let's see. I just have a few things in kind of a random list. Earlier tonight at our work session, we met Deputy Joey Chafin, who is going to be replacing Deputy Sandberg as our day deputy after Steamboat Days, so it was great to meet him. Let's see. I got some good feedback from Elephant Joe's. Elephant Joe's is the coffee truck, the little coffee food truck, and I'm a big fan, so I went to see them a few weeks ago at Clones Festival, and they said the same thing this weekend when they were in Carver, but they said, coming to Carver is the greatest. We love coming to Carver. Everything is so organized. Vicki is terrific to work with, so I wanted to publicly give you that shout out, Vicki. So very well done. The coffee people love you big time, which I appreciate because that means I'll come back to Carver more often. So thank you for all your work with them. Let's see, I got a letter here from the League of Minnesota Cities that says that Senator Coleman was chosen as the League of Minnesota Cities Legislator of Distinction for 2022. So kudos to her for doing that. She will be representing us for a few more months through the end of the year until we get redistricted. Let's see. Since the last meeting, I participated in Night to Unite. Deputy Sandberg and I rode around to about a half a dozen parties, and it was fun meeting residents and watching the kids run through her squad car and test all the bells and whistles. We had a Meet the Mayor event at Carver Ridge. We had a Carver County Mayor's meeting. We had the primary election last week, so again, thank you to all of the folks who volunteered and worked as election judges that day. There was a Minnesota Mayors Association meeting. I think that is about it. As far as council requests, I am just wondering if we can talk about at a future meeting what we can do in terms of a panhandling ordinance. I've seen an increase in our neighboring communities, and I haven't seen the issue here, but I'm hoping that we can get ahead of that. So I don't know if that's something we can ordinance or not, but I'd like to.
I can work with staff on some of the discussion. I know there are certainly First Amendment implications with that,
Okay.
but there are ways that cities have navigated those issues because of the public safety concerns with people standing, next to streets, and there are issues with that. And so I think there's some creative ways cities can regulate that.
Okay.
But I just want you to be mindful that there are some First Amendment issues that have been litigated all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they do regulate some of that. So
Okay. Yeah, and I understand it may be like the sex offender ordinance, where it's something that we choose not to go down that path, but I would like to learn a little bit more and kind of see what we can do, and in your opinion, if it's a good thing to do or not. All right.
I agree. I don't know if you're looking for counsel, but I think there's no problem with looking into that and seeing what's out there. So thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, no problem. Let me just double check my list here. I think that is it for my, the only other update, this afternoon I met with the Misgen family. They're well on their path for approval for a Mizzy's Pizza location in the city of Carver, which is super exciting. They have a location right now in Belle Plaine. It's a local family, and they're super excited to potentially be building a building in Carver Square. So that is it for my updates. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Councilmember Henry,
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember Sayre. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Good evening.